G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, review of the week time. So, probably best to start with last night. Also, just in general, the whole time over here, it's been crazy good. You know, the press conference was something else. The weigh-in was just crazy. I was at the Joyce Hammer weigh-in, and that was really small. It was in the same room, it's in the same arena. But I remember being there, and it was literally just trainers and a few fighters. That was it. There was no really. There was obviously like the boxing socials, your IFLs. That was it. Whereas this one was just like they had like the barriers up, you know, to separate people because there was that many in. It was crazy. So yeah, it's been a crazy couple of days. Shout out to Ade, obviously, every single time for having me up in the studio. We done that on it was Friday night. That was just that was crazy. I mean, getting to actually sit in the studio and do that, it was crazy. So hopefully we can do that again sometime, fingers crossed. But in terms of the boxing news of the last few days, we'll start off with last night, of course. A lot to actually talk about. It wasn't just the top of the bill, which was obviously Anthony Yarde versus Artur Beterbiev. Mosa and Tumur made his pro debut. Now, I obviously interviewed him there on Thursday, and what took me so surprised, and it kind of, when I asked about it and he answered, I was kind of like so surprised I instantly just went on to another question rather than follow up, because I was curious about how many amateur fights he had. Because when you look at a Tumur, you see a very, very talented fighter. You know, you can clearly see that from the amateur fights he's had. He's had them at a decently high level, certainly for his age. So I kind of assumed, okay, he started at 9, I'm sure he's had well over 100. So when he said 24, I was really taken aback when I heard that, because I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me, 24? That's what I was thinking in my head. I was like, how do you look so polished? And how have you got to a decent level as an amateur with just 24 fights? That's impressive. But at the same time, it is a bit of a worry. You know, I'm not going to lie, because it is... The amateurs is where you learn, you get a lot of experience. Essentially, look, it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all to have an extended amateur career. You see plenty of fighters who've had... Canelo Alvarez, it's a good example. Plenty of fighters who don't really do much in the amateurs. They turn pro very early. They have their learning in the pros. Basically, that's what they do. They just spend the first couple of years, journeymans, easy wins, and they're learning as they go along. Whereas Mosa Tumur, he's turning pro very early, and again, not a great deal of amateur fights, so certain experiences might not be there. But he's talking about breaking Tyson's record, so it's not like he's turning over like a Canelo was at 15 and could have 5-6 years. Well, it was 5-6 years before he fought Baldomir, so he had a long time before he had like that kind of step up. Atum is talking about breaking Tyson's record come May 25, so a little over 2 years. That's a bit of a worry. In terms of the fight itself, I mean, I knew they'd get someone in there who didn't really have much of a pulse. We kind of knew that was kind of a given. Yeah, the less said about that fight, the better, to be honest with you. He went down fairly innocuously. You do see the hand speed of Atuma, you do, but I guess for your pro debut, a guy who was 2-1 with 2 knockouts, at the end of the day, you know, normally you see it with these guys instantly that they've no ambition, they're looking for the canvas. And to be honest with you, they would have been better off just getting a really tricky journeyman or someone like that, someone who could at least, you know, say, okay, I'll try, rather than in 15 seconds later you're out. That was kind of like now he's back out in March on that Telford show, on the Nick Neely show, so we'll see how he gets on there. Hopefully hopefully Frank Warren will step up the level, because that was just crazy. In terms of the pro debut didn't go perfect, and I'll tell you why. Because Carol Tumur, his brother, actually lost on the undercard. Now, that ain't a good look. He was stopped in the 5th round. Ain't a good look. I mean, this was his first crack at a title at 175 pounds, and Beterbiev fought this guy in his 10 pro fight, which was a good few years ago now, and they were kind of using that as kind of the selling thing, and obviously since then, that was a long time ago. But Beterbiev and Tumur, they clearly miles apart in terms of where they're going. That's a devastating loss. That's the way I was supposed to say. He's only 22. You can rebuild, but that's going to take some coming back from. That's what I will say. It's going to take some serious coming back from. In terms of the main event, obviously, I talked about it last night. Anthony Yarde, Artur Beterbiev, great fight. I think it didn't just live up to expectations. I think a lot of us knew this was going to be a good fight, but I don't think we expected how good it would be. And the better man won at the end of the day. Apparently Yarde was ahead on 2 of the judges' scorecards. I gave him the first 2 rounds. You could give him the third. Possibly I didn't. I gave Beterbiev the third and fourth. I think the 5th round was kind of one of them rounds where they both had their success, but I feel as though Beterbiev, he got the better of it. He hurt Yarde more than he was hurt in that round. So for that reason, I would have given it to Beterbiev. And there was rounds where both guys had their success, but it looked like this. It wasn't like Yarde was winning. Could I make a case that he could be ahead on one of them? Yeah, sure. Was he ahead by much? No, he's only ahead by, I believe, a round on one of them and 2 rounds on the other. So it's not like, it's not like a good example, Canelo Alvarez, Dimitri Bivol, where in the first 4 rounds Canelo was outboxed and one judge gave him the first 4 rounds. It's just like, wait, what? So it's not that bad. Like, that was really disgraceful. I mean, really was just shocking that they'd actually try and do that. But they did. And I've no doubt, given the chance, they'll do it again. So that was the Artur Beterbiev Yarde fight. In terms of where both guys go, we'll start with Beterbiev, obviously. This is good news. I feel this is good news, and I hope this is the case. And I'll touch on a few things about this now in a second. So Top Rank's Carl Moretti, he's declared that they actually want to do Beterbiev versus Bivol next for Undisputed. They'll be reaching out to Dimitri Bivol's camp and trying to do so. Now, obviously, Bivol, is he fighting Bouatsi? Is he not? I found it strange, I'm not going to lie, that Bouatsi was doing the punditry for BT Sport on a Frank Warren show. Not going to lie, I did find that a bit strange because, he's still with the Zone and Matchroom, so I'm kind of like, okay. And remember, if the Pascal fight had gone through, it would have been on BT Sport, wouldn't it? Didn't they win the purse bid? So, yeah, I don't know what's happening with Bouatsi. I really don't. He's not fought since May last year in a very, very close fight. Very close. Like, don't let it be fooled the way Bellew at ringside had. That was a very close fight. Could have really gone either way. Him and Craig Richards. Very, very competitive fight. I don't know what Joshua Bouatsi is doing. Him against Yarde, I'll take that now. I go back and forth a lot about that fight. There's times where I was adamant Bouatsi would win. There's other times I've been adamant that Yarde wins. I really don't know. Going to my head, Yarde, I think he's the more naturally gifted of the two. And I think he would just come out on top, to be honest with you. But I'd like to see what he's going to do. In terms of, Eddie Hearn has obviously said Callum Smith is next. He's mandatory for the WBC. Now, Sullivan, it's been weird, right? Because he's gone back and forth, repeatedly on what he said is happening next. So, he said several times that the Undisputed will take precedent over the mandatory at light heavyweight. But then he's gone on to say, actually, no, it won't take precedent. So I don't know what the situation is with Yarde or with Callum Smith versus Beterbiev, whether it happens or has to happen, or whether if they can get the Dimitri Bivol fight. Personally, for me, Undisputed at 175, I'd rather that. And I think that fight is just tremendous. I keep saying Yarde, it's just because he's so fresh in my mind. Beterbiev versus Bivol at 175 pounds. I mean, the way Beterbiev just breaks people down. And I think, unlike someone when Ramirez fought Dimitri Bivol, the boxing of Dimitri Bivol was on point and he did a fantastic job, but I felt that Ramirez really let that fight slip away. I'm not saying if he'd been a bit more aggressive, and it is very hard to be aggressive with Bivol because of the speed, the punching power is definitely there, but I felt that he could have given himself a better chance to win. He never used his natural size that he had. Remember that fight? He looked enormous next to Dimitri, but it was actually scary when you actually see, and you're like, how the hell did this guy get down to 175 pounds? And you felt that if he could have used that weight, and he did do it in parts in that fight, but not enough. There was a few times he did it. I felt as though he could have had a more competitive fight. He's not as good as Artur Beterbiev. Beterbiev is the stronger guy, in my opinion. I think he definitely is. Bigger puncher, I don't think there's any question. destructive. He can box as well, Beterbiev, and he's wily. That's the best way you describe Beterbiev. He's a very wily type of fighter. He knows what he's doing in there, even when it's tough in there. Like, I'll give you an example, right? In the Yarde fight last night, as good as Yarde was doing, and as entertaining as it was, I never really watching it got the sense that Beterbiev was really in any great danger, if you get me. You always kind of felt like Beterbiev is still going to win this fight, but Yarde is having his moments. But you never got the impression that, like, oh my god, like, could this be happening? You always felt that Beterbiev's in control, and he always seems to be in control of his fights. So Yarde Beterbiev, great fight. Beterbiev versus Bivol, please, I would love it if we could get that fight over the line. And, you know, obviously you can hear the whatever that is going up the road, but obviously if we can get that fight over the line, Canelo Alvarez is the issue, because obviously he has his rematch with Dimitri Bivol. So I don't know. Well, you think about it like this, right? Canelo wants to avenge that loss, and he wants to do it at undisputed at 168 pounds. Who else could he really fight? I mean, all the titles at 175 will be between those two guys. Could fight a Charlo, potentially. Could, yeah. Benavidez, yeah, but they're in PBC. So is he with the Zone on a multi-fight deal, or is he going to have the John Ryder fight, then he can go PBC, then he can go back to the Zone? What way does it work with Alvarez? So, I don't know. I would, as much as I want that fight, I'd love it. I would love it if they could get that fight over the line. I really would. But I think that there's too many people who, you know, have staken their claim, so to speak, for the light heavyweight title. So there was that. Obviously, we saw Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. That was announced last night. They had their face-off in the ring. Tommy Fury, he really is. He's doing his kind of between Tyson and John. You know, whatever. You get the T-shirt off. You know, show them. Yeah. Look, a lot of people I've seen online were very critical of this face-off. They're not happy about this fight. They don't like the fact it's on pay-per-view. I've said this once, and I will say it again. I'll reiterate this until I'm blue in the face. Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, personally for me, not only do I not have a problem with it, take my money, BT Sport. Seriously, that's how I feel about this fight. Take my money. I'm entertained. And I've said this about Misfits cards. I've said it till I'm blue in the face. Is that not what boxing primarily is about? It's a form of entertainment. So if we're watching a fight and it's entertaining, does it matter what level it's at? You know, I use this example because this happened recently enough. Nicky Campbell versus Steve Robinson. That was just before Christmas. Neither guy, oh Jesus, I mean, neither guy, no disrespect, would even threaten the British scene. They wouldn't. For British title, they wouldn't even threaten it. But were you not entertained? I was. Two heavyweights, not much talent, swinging for the fences. I enjoyed that. There's a couple of Misfits fights as well that you've enjoyed, like I've enjoyed personally. And I'm sure as a boxing fan you could say, well, it's not the highest level, but it's enjoyable. And you could turn around, you could get a fight that's a very high level fight, and it could be a chess match the whole way through. And you could be watching this fight and thinking, I actually paid 25 quid for this, you know? And that does happen as well. So it's not always the top of the cream of the crop who bring the most entertainment. Sometimes it could be guys low down the card. And is Jake Paul or Tommy Fury going to win a title at cruiserweight or 175 pounds? No, I'd say very, very, very unlikely. In fact, extremely unlikely. But two of them going at it, right? I'm going to be entertained. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to pay for do a live watch along. And again, I said this once, I'll say it again. This is a professional fight. So if this brings eyes, and it'll be interesting to see what the undercard's going to be like, if this brings eyes to the sport and it gets some new fans in, is that not a good thing? Is that not a good thing? I think it is, personally. So hopefully we can have this fight's going to be good, and hopefully we can get some new fans first. Apparently the price on ESPN for Jake Paul versus Fury is going to be $49.99, so £50. Interesting. Oh, and actually, here you go. Here's a fight announced for the undercard. I didn't even see this until just there. So Ilunga Makabu, who hasn't made a defense of his title in a year, and he won a very contentious decision against the Beast of Machunu last year. Very contentious decision. He's not fought since then. And actually, remember, Canelo was looking to try and fight Makabu. That's gone quiet. I don't know why that's gone quiet. You would think, actually, there you go, there's a 5th world title, and I'd say Makabu is the weakest. He is going to defend that title against Badu Jack, and obviously Badu Jack, he's well associated in that part of the world. You know, he's very close there. He got a very fortunate decision, I felt, and a very strange fight the last time he was out there in Saudi Arabia on the undercard of AJ Usyk. I can't remember the guy's name. Richard Rivera, is that how you say it, or something like that? Very contentious decision, to say the least. But there was one round, I'm nearly sure there was like a 4-minute round, where Jack got him in trouble, and it wasn't just 3 minutes. And say, sometimes it happens, 3 minutes, 10 seconds, timekeeper doesn't ring the bell just on the nick of it. This was like a minute. So I let him away with 5-10 seconds, but a minute, right, let's see. Oh, this, yeah. I just even reading it, it's just like, really? Chris Eubank Jr.'s team are looking at possibly making an official appeal to the British Boxing Board of Control over the Liam Smith defeat. Promoter Calla Sauerland has revealed that the allegation, I should say, I was looking at that, I was like, what is that? The allegation is that Liam Smith landed an illegal elbow in the combination which led to the first knockdown. Alright, so inside boxing, and you're opening up a combination, you're opening up flurries, elbows will go in, heads will go in. Look at Josh Warrington. That'll happen. But in terms of that being the contributing factor to the knockdown, well, basically that knockdown was what ended the fight for all intents and purposes, because Eubank was in no fit state to continue after it. In terms of that being the reason, no. You look at that combination, that uppercut that Liam Smith hit Eubank Jr. with took his head clean off his shoulders. And an uppercut you'll often find is a punch that really does scramble the senses of a fighter. If they get hit with a good one and they get up, they're normally not recovering, and their normally legs are absolutely gone. That, for me, was what did it. Eubank's lack of experience in that situation, getting up so quick. The referee instantly, when he got up so quick, he was up at the count of like 4 or 5 or something, legs were gone. And the referee can see that, and obviously if he took the full 8 count and tried to kill a bit of time, God knows, maybe it would have been different. I don't know, I doubt it. But lack of experience being in that situation, they're the reasons why he was stopped. And at the end of the day, like, he's talking about, I'm sure he's looking at Liam Smith and thinking, I need this rematch, because light heavyweight, or not light heavyweight, 168, it's a tough division, and it is. It's not an easy division. I would say he would struggle at that division, truth be told. So what else do you do? Well, you try and right the wrong in the rematch, but it's on Liam Smith's terms this time. So if they're doing it, it's probably going to be in Liverpool. They'd like to do it in Anfield. And maybe he's using this for 2 reasons. One, as a crutch to lean on. He could turn around and say, look, I was in control in the fight and he only beat me because of the elbow. I'm sure that's probably what he's going to do. He was maintaining that he beat George Groves when he clearly didn't, So maybe he's going to use that and probably use it to just add a bit of needle to it. If they're rematching again, they're doing a face-off, the gloves are off kind of thing. Here's proof that you did it. Kind of like Deontay Wilder. Not as bad as Deontay Wilder, of course. I mean, he really is just in another stratosphere in terms of excuse making. I mean, he really is. I mean, he stands top of the mountain. I mean, Eubank Jr., you might say, oh, he's making excuses. Like, he hasn't come out and blamed the suit, or he hasn't come out and said Roy Jones was in cahoots. He hasn't come out and said that the referee was in on it, that he was spiked, etc. He's nowhere near as bad as that. But look, he's probably just using this as essentially a crutch to lean on. Confirmed as well that Dave Benavidez will face Caleb Plant, MGM Grand, on the 25th of March. So that fight, the winner, I believe, is mandated to face Canelo Alvarez. So we have 2 potential fights there. We have Benavidez versus Canelo. I mean, yes, take my money. Yes, please, really. Or we have Canelo versus Plant 2. Yeah, you all know which one I want. Joshua versus Franklin. Yeah, this, for all intents and purposes, this is done. This is a done deal. Potentially could have a very interesting undercard as well. Potentially could have a very, very interesting undercard. It's going to be on pay-per-view, more likely. Well, definitely. Franklin, I've said this once, I'll say it again. As an opponent, for me, I've no issue with it. And again, the reason why, I've said this once, I'll say it again, I have no issue with it, is that Franklin is not going to be sold as this boogeyman. You know, no one wants to fight him, and AJ for his first comeback fight is taking on the boogeyman. It's not like that. It's a comeback fight. We all know that. And at the end of the day, can you begrudge him a comeback fight? And listen, you know, people, when I spoke about this with Ade, and people were like, oh, G-Man's changed his tune. Well, if they actually listened to my videos and they actually watched them and didn't just have selective, you know, picks and just say, oh, I've said from the get-go, I even said from when it was Dempsey McKeon, I don't mind. Let him have a comeback fight. You know, Wilder had his comeback fight against Robert Helenius. Did I criticise him for that? No. Because I knew, well, Helenius was dangerous. Helenius has a different danger to Jermaine Franklin. Helenius' punching power is very much a factor. But for all intents and purposes, Wilder should have wiped the floor with him. And he did. And Joshua should wipe the floor with Franklin. And I've no doubt he will. Do I think that Joshua needs maybe more comeback fights than Wilder? Possibly, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, with Wilder, it's more physical, I think, than mental with him. Yeah, he's going to keep saying Fury cheated and all that, but I think deep down he knows that. But it's just the physical. I mean, Wilder, you know, with Joshua, he was outboxed by Usyk, and then he had obviously those issues in the ring after. But he's never really, like, he's never hurt badly. I mean, Wilder, jeez, you know, those both Fury fights, think of the damage he took in them. So Wilder, it's more physical than mental, and physical is, in my opinion, it's not as bad trying to get over something physically as it is mentally. I mean, that's where it really gets tricky. And that's where you might need a long time. You seriously might need a long time. So, with the whole situation with Joshua Franklin, look, pay-per-view is what it is. But in terms of how I think it is as a comeback, or how I think it is in terms of a fight, I don't mind it. You know, likelihood is we'll get a Dylan White out of a lean winner in the summer. If that fight happens, they might just scrap it and just do Dylan White out of Anthony Joshua in the summer anyway. Because as I said, you know, with Dylan White, alright, I wouldn't be taking any serious risks. So, look, I don't mind those two, and then we'll see what happens at the end of the year. For me, that's fine. So, you know, I'll stay consistent on that. That with Joshua coming back, I'm not going to begrudge him. And again, I don't expect him to sell it. I don't think Eddie Hearn will. I don't think they'd sell it as, you know, a dangerous, he's so dangerous and he's a boogeyman and no one wants to. No, Frank Sanchez is a boogeyman. Now, I'd be like, whoa, Eddie, seriously, you're making a mistake here if they announce someone like a Frank Sanchez. I'd be like, why? You want him to get beat? But someone like this, you know, I know they're not going to sell him as a boogeyman. I don't mind it. Joshua should get the job done. Franklin has a couple of things going that might cause AJ a bit of bother early on, but I doubt much. So that's my thoughts on all this. Again, I don't want to keep this too long. Obviously, the settings, the background is not exactly what you're used to. I like this place. It's in Westminster. I like this hotel. I always stay here. So I'll leave you with that. Smash the like button if you could, people. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I will leave you with that. Hope you all have a great week this week. You know, I should be back home on Tuesday evening, so back to normal settings. And yeah, hopefully everyone has a great week. Hopefully, I always say, hopefully people get some good news. I hope I do myself. I really do. I hope I get some good news this week. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. So I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button.